Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I've got Scott Royal Smith here with us today. He is a fellow attorney, founder of Royal Legal Solutions, uh, zooming in all the way from Utah. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm actually on my Utah home right now.
Yeah, with that very, very big brain of yours. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Now, for the audience listening in, obviously, right now you focus in a lot of your work around asset protection, right? You are a family office, but did you always start that way, right? Did you always know you were gonna get into the legal space, get your JD? I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, it actually all started when I was a kid. Like I was raised
Oh,
by
really?
like a single mother
Okay.
and I actually ended up like pushing lawnmowers for most of the time like growing up. And I was always like insanely curious about money because it seemed to be that the people that
Mm,
actually like had money were people that were like respected. They could go like do cool things. They had freedom to like
yeah,
just make whatever decisions they wanted to. And
absolutely.
so from the time I was a kid, I didn't know what money was supposed to get you, but I knew it was super important and I was willing to work really hard to get it. And that actually is like the roots of ultimately now where going to law school, building businesses, building a family office to manage my own wealth
Mm.
and now helping others go through that journey so they can enjoy life more.
Well, I love it. I love it. And who is it that you specifically help?
Yeah, we're typically looking for my company is really looking for people working with people that are in that 300K plus annual income.
Hmm.
And typically between that 1 to 50 million like total net worth because it's inside of that zone where there's the high level and advanced strategic work and high
Yeah.
level and advanced investing and like the
Yeah.
CPA, CFO things that really
Hmm.
make it where there's big wins. It's really hard to build all of those teams for yourself, is what we find, and that the dollar figures in there can be, 20 to $100,000 a year in
Right.
tax optimizations that are just getting lost.
Sure. So do you basically help people build out their family office? Is that what you're saying?
What we'll do is we have an in-house team, which is actually my team that I built for
Uh-huh.
myself, really. And
Uh-huh.
what we do then is then fractionalize it. We have our systems and processes and meeting structures that I actually use to
Mm,
manage all of my own wealth. And then we allow a certain number of clients to get onboarded each year to basically piggyback off of all of the 10 years and $10 million that I spent to be able to figure this out and to build these teams.
great. I love it. Now, in terms of obviously your motivation was always from childhood, but in terms of the journey, right? Did you
Hmm.
always know about family offices? I mean,
No.
I did not until I shook the right hands, right? So, do you mind sharing with the audience how you got access into this information and ultimately, right? Like, what were the maybe different stops you had to take before arriving?
Yeah, so, like most people, right? All I really was focused on at the very beginning was just like how to make money,
Okay.
right? As you're just trying to stack that top line revenue. And
Yep.
I was a big student of like Tim Ferriss and like Tony Robbins, in like my early 20s, maybe just like every guy out there. I'm not sure, but um, the big turning points for me actually happened while I was in law school. I was in my finishing out my second year of law school, and a friend of
Okay.
mine said, "Hey, let's buy this commercial building, an existing transmission and auto repair shop, and let's run it while we're in law school." And so we actually rehabbed the building. It was a dump, but we rehabbed the building and we rehabbed and built the business. And then we flipped the building and the business to pay off law school when we graduated. And that
Hmm.
was my first big like aha moment that I was like, oh, like there's way more money learning about how to like take an asset and improve it, and then also how to take a business and make that work really well. Of course, we were idiots. We didn't know what we were doing at the time, but
Yeah.
luckily, those businesses are very forgiving.
So, did that string on a series of events to where you started looking at more opportunities within the space, or was that just like a one-off event that then gave you, the idea of like, hey, I could actually make money while I'm still in school.
Yeah, so after I graduated, I ended up wanting to go and practice as a litigation attorney. While I was in
Hmm.
law school, I was actually working in the appellate division of New York and the district attorney's office there. And so
Oh,
I
okay.
was a
Cool.
trained litigator,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, I'm gonna go be a lawyer and I'm gonna do the whole status thing of me being a really important lawyer because I thought that would make me really important and really respected to have that job. And I did that, and but the whole time while I was working as an attorney, I was still investing in real estate until I was
Uh-huh.
started to actually make more money through my real estate business part time than I was
Mm.
actually making as an attorney. And it was not too long before I actually hit my first financial freedom number, where I was actually having passive income come in that would allow me to leave my law job. And I immediately left and just went to go travel Africa, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and just go start exploring because that's actually what I really wanted to do. Was like, how do I
Ah,
get
there it
into?
is. There it
Mhm.
is. The freedom aspects and what you do with it.
That's right. But this whole idea that you have about like what freedom meant, it
Yeah.
isn't what they told me it was. Like reading
No.
Robert Kiyosaki's books
Uh-huh.
and all those, I was like, oh, once you get the real estate assets and that's working for you, okay, I'll hire a property manager. It kind of stinks to hire a property manager because they eat in really significantly to all of my profits there.
Mm.
But I wanted to get passive because I really wanted to be about where am I living.
Yeah.
And while I was actually on my travels, I ended up finding out that the properties that I had actually ran out of depreciation, which I needed to be able to offset all of my taxes. So all of a
Yep.
sudden, I was going to get slammed with this massive tax bill and because it was a surprise, there was nothing I could do about it. It was too late. So I ended up paying a ton of money out in
Mm.
taxes. And I said, all right, well, I better figure out something to make sure that this, doesn't happen again. And that's where I started this crusade about, okay, well, how do I find the right, tax attorneys, the right
Right.
CPAs that actually understand investing?
Yeah.
So that way I can, be more proactive with my intelligence because getting surprised by it actually cost me a ton of money.
Yeah.
And then I also realized at the same time that I was like, well, how the heck am I going to keep assets coming in the door? Because I need more depreciation to keep my taxes low. And
Right.
the only things I could find at the time, I was like, oh, you end up working it as like a job. That was 20 to 30 hours a week just to make sure that you had all of your assets taken care of because you have to manage the property managers and then you have to work on your deal pipeline to make sure you have deals coming in and then vetting those deals and closing on those deals. And I was like,
Hmm.
this isn't freedom at all. All it really is, it's better than just, doing the W-2, but I was like, but barely. Like, if this is what it is, and that's when I said, hey, there's got to be a better way, and that took me into a different direction that really made all the difference.
So did you self-study like the concept of a family office? How did that actually get introduced to you? Where you were now familiar with something like that?
It actually happened when I went in. First of all, I was lost about like what to do at that point because I was like
Mm.
everybody I could find, nobody had a real solution for it. It was just the inevitable endpoint of this is what happens to you, right? Whenever you reach it. So, but I said I didn't accept
That's
that
not
answer.
that doesn't sound like a very happy ending.
It's not the ending, which is it's just the new frustration point that came
Ah, okay.
that there had to be another way, right?
Okay. All right.
And so what I did is I spent around $50,000 to join high net worth groups like GoBundance and Tiger 21. Because
Mm.
I figured if there's anybody that was going to know how to solve these problems, it was going to be people that were sophisticated entrepreneurs, that were also investors like themselves, that had built things from like the ground up and were really interested in lifestyle optimization. And
Yep.
I didn't have a family, but for like those men and those women, that's what they were really all trying to get to is like, how can they be more present and there for like their kids? How can they say, oh, well, we only have 18 summers with our kids. So how can we make sure to take 3 solid months off every single year to go spend time, raising our kids? And I got to learn from them from
Mm.
like the conference, sitting in the conference rooms with them, flying out to go hang out with them like over other weekends that like it wasn't even part of the group trips and just spending tons of time with them to slowly put together the pieces about how do you effectively screen, hire, train, your CPA, CFOs, your how do you do that for what kinds of like deals that you're going to look into? How do you invest inside of syndications or active, asset-backed businesses that have the kinds of tax benefits and cash flow pieces? How do you monitor those types of payments coming into you? There was just so much that actually went into it to make it work. But that's what I wanted. So I was like, well, I'll put in the work to be able to make that happen. And what I found is that the reason why that these things don't exist and why most people don't have them is because it's incredibly expensive and time consuming to
Hmm.
go build on your own. That's why that it's only families that have 50 million plus net worths have an in-house team of all of these people. It's because nobody else can justify the expense like otherwise. But I did it because I'm a lunatic about like what is the lifestyle that I want, and I'm hell bent on optimizing my lifestyle,
That's
whatever it
right. I
takes.
love it. These are the people that I want to have conversations with, right? For me, I left medicine because my own personal goals and dreams of owning the NBA team came about after college. And in today's world, in order to do that, you need $5 to $10 billion, right? So that's kind of what set me on my journey to figure out what is the best way, the best vehicle to create that kind of wealth. And I'm very happy to have found a home in the hedge fund space for sure. Um,
Hmm.
so Scott, for you, what is your biggest advice to people listening in, right, who may not have everything figured out, or who may be in one of their frustration points right now?
Yeah, so just like I was talking about, if you're in that frustration point, the best thing that I've been able to find is that's the time to start looking for a guide, right? Finding somebody else that's already walked the path that you're wanting to walk. So, and because they've walked that path for themselves, they can speak to the firsthand experience of what does it really take to build it, right? So, like if you're looking at, if you're in Silicon Valley and they're trying to hire a CEO, they're not trying to hire a CEO that it's like their first time being a CEO. They want to hire a CEO that's like built a similarly sized business and has like built that up from like one spot to the other, from 4 million to 50 million or whatever the case may be, right? And it's the same thing with everything in life. Now, among the guides that you can select, it's also important to know what is the problem that you're really trying to solve. Because if you're trying to solve a tax problem, you'll find a tax guide. If you're trying to find an investment problem, you'll find an investment guide. If you're trying to solve a legal or asset protection problem, you'll find an asset protection guide. The harder guides to find are the ones that have mastered multiple disciplines and then have
Hmm.
integrated them together. And the very most difficult guides to find are the ones that have mastered all of the technical skill sets that you need for wealth, the asset protection, the tax, the CFO skills, and all of the investment work, and have also integrated that in with a very particular and intentional lifestyle design. So like how do they show up every day, their state of being, their nutrition, their exercise, their fun and adventure, their all of the buckets and gardens that make up how they live, and then
Hmm.
makes the money side of things fit into the holistic way in which they want to live. And that's where I feel like in some ways that um I'm always looking for other people that are like me that are obsessed about optimizing at that level. And I find that they're extremely hard to find.
They are. And so for those listening, right, because you mentioned you were at a frustration point, you had enough money coming in to be able to, invest into groups like Tiger 21, right? These high net worth groups. And I think the other one you mentioned was like Go Abundance, something like that.
Hmm.
Uh, if you're experiencing similar things, but you don't have the ability to get access to those people at that caliber, where do you start, right? Because I have my specific answers in terms of how I started, but I'm kind of curious, what would you suggest?
Um, yeah, I mean, in some ways, right? I've tried to take all of the information and systematize it that I've been able to pull and extract out of these groups, right?
Hmm.
And then that became the basically essentially the underlying intelligence of Royal Legal Solutions. But let's say
Mm.
that like you're looking for some other option that's besides that, right? Um, what I typically recommend for people is if you're in an earlier part of the journey and you're looking for some type of like mentorship through these areas, then what becomes really important is actually finding getting really clear about who exactly it is you're looking for, like making like a almost like a wanted poster, right? Like the
Yep, that's right.
perfect person I'm looking for is
Sure.
going to have like these attributes, these value systems, these technical skill sets or whatever. And then what I would do is I'd get in front of the people that are the very most likely to be that person or know that person, and then start talking to them about who it is that you're looking for and asking them like, hey, who do you know
Yeah,
might not be the perfect person for this, but would be close to it, or might have an
gotcha.
idea of who I'm looking for. And then that's how you do intentional leverage networking.
Yep. Still, I was gonna say it's still networking, but strategic networking. What I was gonna say is, for me, definitely mentorship because you don't have to have direct mentorship sometimes. Like for example, when I was going through my own journey, I binge watched Shark Tank so I could hang around with Mark Cuban, right? Since he's a fellow NBA team owner, right? And you want to learn from people who have that lifestyle that you want to live, right? So, for me, it started with small things like audiobooks, books. I mean, I just typed in the word billion on Amazon. If you're resourceful enough, right? Like literally there's at least 5 books off the top of my head, like $1 billion secrets from homeless to billionaire, right? Whatever, fill in the blank. And so I would just listen, I would listen, I would read similar things accordingly. And as you do that, I found that it would open up doors because within those books they contain, lists of resources or lists of people, and you can contact those people accordingly, right, as well. So that
That's
I
what
was gonna say that's the ladder, the ascension, so to speak.
yeah, I think it always, so that's like what I cover was a networking part and yours is like
Yeah.
the study part, right?
Yep,
And,
that's right.
I think I find that it works really well if you're always doing both, right?
Yep.
Because the people that, if you reach somebody that's too is so high level that you
Yeah.
can't actually speak intelligently to their experience, then they're actually not going to be interested in you. Everybody is always interested in helping somebody else that's asking the right questions, right?
And also, what do you have to offer and bring to the table? You know,
Yeah,
that's
I
another
think
thing too.
it is, and I know that sometimes I think when people can hear that, Philip, what they can think is in terms of like a transaction, right? That like,
Mm.
oh, what am I going to bring to this billionaire? The real and like, oh, what are they going to want me to
Well, I
do
guess
that's going to
okay,
like
okay.
help
Let's
with
let's
them or
rephrase
something?
it. I guess what I'm getting at is the substance and depth that you're coming at, right? So if you're talking to like someone who's at level 1,000 and you're only at level 10, right? You don't have that much substance to cover the ground. But like if you're like at level 100, level 200, and you're like, hey, here's what I'm looking to accomplish. You're someone that I look up to, yada yada yada. Here are some things that you discuss. I'm wondering if, right? But what I'm saying is it's a whole lot more appetizing for that other person to take on someone who's not like, you know, a huge work in progress. It's like, okay, you got some things going on, you put the work in. Maybe you just need a little accelerant and a catalyst, and here's where I can come in the picture. But you have to be able to articulate that, right? Because they're not going to draw that up for you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah.
that's typically my usually go-to if I only have like 5 minutes. If I can get in front of somebody who's really high level and I only have 5 minutes with them, then what I will my typical game plan with that is to actually try to talk to them about like a really specific problem that I'm trying to solve, why I
Hmm.
think there's somebody that might have unique knowledge about that, and then ask them, what insights or resources do they know about that I should study, right? And
That's right.
so then my leverage networking is actually I'm using my network to be able to help me find what are the resources so I can exactly do exactly what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
amazingly enough, if you actually go put it, most people that ever ask them those questions will never actually go read any and study any of those resources. So if you actually do study the resources they did,
I know.
now you have a reason to go back to them, email and be like, hey, I studied these resources. I was seeing like these things that I thought that would be, were things that you were trying to highlight when you told me XYZ. Okay, and what did
Yep.
you just communicate to them? I'm somebody that listens, I'm proactive, I'll take the work, I'll follow up with you. Who are the people that all great people want in their lives? Well, it's people that are doing that thing of like
Right.
they can listen, take action, think critically, and get back to
Yeah.
them.
But there is, I do want to, address this point. You mentioned how when, we talk about bringing something to the table, some people think it's transactional. I think you do have to be ready to pay the price. And you can pay the price in, different ways, right? One is time, other is effort, the third one is money, right? And I'm speaking from personal experience, but I've certainly found that when you do invest in yourself and you're not afraid of putting down whatever is required. I mean, you're not only getting access to proper information, but you're getting access to like social capital is what I call it. And now maybe this would not have worked out for me in Silicon Valley, but that's how I was able to become president and CEO, right? Because I am essentially personally speaking, a walking compilation of programs, right? And so by the time I had ran into my current business partner now, I had already stacked up so much skill sets, right, within myself that, that when I started as a client initially to learn how to trade and invest in the markets properly, but then it was during, I mean, I learned how to kick a couple $100 over a couple of thousand at the beginning, which is great, but it was very insignificant because it was during those intimate client conversations that allowed us to go, hey, here's a bigger opportunity if we were to combine our capabilities together, right? And then within the first month, it was a test trial month. He delivered, I delivered. Then after 3 months, I was bona fide CEO. But again, the key thing here is I had something to offer. I had skill sets that were built up to where he didn't have it and he recognized it. And then, he was open to doing a joint venture and collaborating, right? But in a way, I didn't really pay to be like his student, even though he is my mentor. I paid for access and I paid for this opportunity that later eventually presented itself, right? So I do have to for address that point. That in my
Yeah.
opinion, there is no such thing as a free lunch. That
Yeah. I think you're right in a lot of ways, man, like with what you were sharing there, right? And like there's like I had to pay to get involved with Tiger 21 and Abundance, right?
yeah,
That there's
yeah, I was
and
yeah,
and sometimes, if I want to go hang out with Richard Branson on like his island, right? That's $50,000 to go be able to go spend a couple of days,
right,
clinking around some tennis balls and asking him some questions, right? So there's sometimes like money turns out to be like gateways of the way that these men have designed that they want barriers to know that you're
yeah,
gonna
absolutely.
to respect the time and the space that they've created in their lives and like invite you like into it, right? Um, you know, sometimes money can be about different things too, right? So like in the you know the personal development or business coaching space that I work with some just a handful of people each year.
Hmm.
Um, I end up having to charge people a ton of money, like in the six-figure range, because the amount of money is actually hooked to how much difficulty that they're going to
Yeah,
have and moving through those areas of their life. And the money actually is a way for them to anchor in like a commitment to movement. Otherwise, they won't be able to benefit from the
because
things that I'm
when
offering them.
you pay attention, right? So
Hmm. It's like
sometimes it's the rite of passage.
it ends up being like that thing, and
Yeah.
it's different for everybody, to some people $5,000 can be like, I'll work with them, as part of my nonprofit for, some type of donation that's like that, but for them it's a significant portion of how
Hmm.
much money they actually have available, and those people I'm very cautious and diligent. I might spend more time with that person than somebody who's worth $50 million and pays $100,000 for the coaching, just because that person's actually not that committed, but if they paid $5,000, that's how much they spent on lunch, so, or dinner or something last week. So you can't, you have to be really conscientious about these things around like money. And the only reason I go into that is because it was one of the most revolutionary concepts in my mind. And as I moved into higher and higher levels of wealth, that everybody was thinking about money, but everything they were doing had nothing to do with money. That money was just a way to be able to like get other people to act in the appropriate way or to create the right type of environment for their life. And then they're like, cool, we'll make money doing investing, but what difference does it make whether you're worth 100 million or 250 million unless you want to buy a basketball team and that's what you're really about, Otherwise, your life actually doesn't change at all in any
I know.
real meaningful way after you
Yeah.
get past the 25 to 50 million mark. So it's, what my friend told me that he said, he said you get at 25 million, you have the passive income to buy a boat. At 100 million, you'll have the passive income to get your private jet. And then
Uh-huh.
after 100 million, all it is you're doing is upgrading your jet.
Yep. Yeah, there's basically, there's a cap to what you can really do. But I mean, the concept is really just modernized. Money is, you know, a contemporary way of bartering. It's just a whole lot better than, offering milk and eggs from your fridge, right? Or from your farm. And as opposed to doing it
It's a lot of
electronically.
eggs.
You know what I mean? Yeah, 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 yeah. So as long as as long as people are able to be cognizant of that and detach themselves emotionally from money, just to recognize that it's just a tool. I think, at the end of the day, that is really where the best impact can be created from, right? Is operating with those kind of insights.
Yeah, no, I think like people's understanding and relationship to money changes a lot over as they grow like through money,
Yeah.
right? The
And responsibilities, right? When you start having kids and a family.
Yeah, like making sure the family is going to take care of that. That's why
Yeah.
everybody I think needs we work really hard about trying to say like how deeply and can we help people and how expansive can we be and who it is we're
Yeah.
helping and focusing
Yeah.
on the lower net worths because my thinking in this. I don't have kids, right? I have a bunch of family and a bunch of people I help take care of and support and everything like that. But I don't have a wife and children of my own. And as a 40-year-old man, it actually leaves you in a really interesting position because there's no point to you, really. You don't have anybody that's actually dependent on you if you're there or you're not there, especially now that there's like a CEO and of Royal Legal Solutions and all those teams, they can operate totally without me. I literally don't have anything that is dependent on me in life anymore, which is scary in one way because dependencies give you purpose. Because I have a purpose now to take care of my family, right? For
Yeah.
example, right?
Hmm.
But it's also freeing in another way to say, like, well, now there's this whole thing about saying, like, how well can you optimize your own experience in your life, which really boils down into how do you control your mind and emotions? How intentional about how are you with like how you're spending your time to be able
Yeah.
to say like what am I really bringing like what's really bringing me enjoyment
Yeah.
and like how am I really caring, for that. Um, and ironically, the same skill sets as I sat in ashrams, for months at a time with monks, as I sat with shamans in the jungle, the same skill sets that I learned there about how to do those things, about controlling the mind and the emotions. When I came back and started working again, what I found is that the very highest skill sets that I could ever learn from the very highest mentors I was able to find inside of the business and the investing world, ultimately what they were doing was that thing about being able to control your mind and emotions was the avenue that was the greatest lever to actually increase the amount of wealth you had to write the very best sales scripts, to be the very best leader, to be the very best support person in somebody's life. It all
Yeah.
came down to like that one critical skill set. And that's apart from my time with making sure that everything in Royal Legal Solutions is properly taken care of. Like for me, that's where I spend my time is like in
Well,
that
yeah, I
way.
mean, because I study success principles, right? If you study success principles correctly, regardless of the industry you're in, you can apply it. So, I mean, what you're hammering home here is the importance of mindset and habits, first and foremost. Because if you have those two things down, doesn't matter where you operate, you can still come out, at the top of the mountain, right? So that's number one. Number two, I would say, it's all about life is about figuring out your purpose and what pathway gives you the most fulfillment. Like for some people, because of whatever upbringing that they had, maybe for them, they're like, I vow to be the best husband and father I possibly can be, and that's like a life purpose. But if that's not you, and you want to go explore the mountains of Africa and live a life of freedom, then kudos to you, right? I mean, that's why personally for me, I had an opportunity myself to start a family in my late 20s, but I'm nowhere near being ready for that. I don't think I can explore that until my late 30s and early 40s, you know, because of what I want to get out of life is a totally different trajectory. So it's just all about, do you have the ability to get clarity around that and then, operate intentionally so that you achieve it.
Yeah, that is the much more traditional way of looking at like what does high success look like. I think there's some other what I would offer to you is that there's actually like a different way. Is that there's a different way of actually looking at what the success is. Now we have an idea that whatever it is that we're going to create next, right, is going to make us feel something. It's going to somehow give me some source of like fulfillment. What I see a lot of times when I go into high net worth groups, though, is that what happens in reality is that people that are really high achievers constantly move the goalpost. That they're what they initially set a goalpost because they said, well, when I have achieved XYZ thing, now I will be experiencing whatever it is, fill in the blank. I will now be good enough. I will now feel like a success. I will now have reached my dreams. I will now have fulfilled my purpose in life, whatever that is. The reality is they reach the goalpost. They say, suddenly I don't feel the way that I thought that I would feel when I got here. Aha. Then what? They go back into the mind, and the mind says, well, it must be further out. Whatever is the feeling that I must not have gone farther enough to be able to feel that way. And what I would offer to you, and this might be something that I hope isn't too contentious, but what I would offer to you is the idea that says that that will always be the case, that there is no such thing as ever arriving at the place of you're going to
Oh,
feel the way you
absolutely
want to
not.
feel by
Yeah,
having a
no,
thing.
you never arrive. I mean, rent is well, not rent. Success is a rent that you pay. It's not something that you own, so you have to pay rent every single day, you know. But on top of that, I think it's also human nature though, right? Like the idea of being at a certain level and then not being as content with it because you're basically your previous high is now a new low because you've set a new standard for yourself. And in a way, that's a lot of how our monkey brains are wired, right? We're
Have
wired for more. We're wired
have
for
you
more, you know?
have you met many like billionaires or people that are ultra successful that suffer with like
They're
depression
just I
and
don't
all
know if
kinds
this
of things like
I
that?
don't know if I want to call it like suffer though. It's just I think it's the inability to be complacent. It's the inability to just be satisfied and just like,
I'm
you
talking
know,
about like actual depression, bro. I'm not talking about like, oh, I wanna, there's two ways. There's a way of being able to say like I'm lethargic and lazy, right? And this is like something that says I'm actually not doing anything that is actually bringing me any real nurture to me in my life. And this is like the typical buckets where we talk about like what does it actually mean to be lazy, and we all say, oh, we shouldn't be lazy, right? There's a whole other thing that I've observed, which is the of people that are ultra successful that have had the big company exit, right? And I've met these people down in the jungles drinking ayahuasca because they're like, I'm worth $100 million. I'm a big name and famous inside of my field. Or some of these guys are worth more than that, more successful than that. And they talk about crippling depression. They talk about a lack of, they've totally lost purpose because their whole purpose was building their company, thinking that they were going to exit and then everything was going to be great, only to find that there was this whole gaping hole that was on the other side, right? And maybe this is too deep for what we're supposed to talk about in the very first meeting, but whatever, right? Because these are kind of wild experiences or happenings to mine. But and the lack of saying, you're able to work on the problem at a different level, then I'm with you, right? Keep active. Keep finding the things that you are going to stay active in life and stay active. Because really the worst thing that you can do is actually, unless you're ready to make the really big internal shifts, the worst thing you can do is just sit
Yeah.
stagnant
Well,
and stay stuck.
I think what you're talking about, though, that phenomenon only happens because people don't recognize that we are bound to evolve. And like for me, I always say like business is just a vehicle. So I don't put any ties on my fulfillment or purpose to the business itself because the business is literally like the thing that allows me to accomplish what I want to accomplish, like personally speaking, right? And so even my whole thing of owning an NBA team, I mean, that's just like the very surface level. But really, like for me, the personal fulfillment comes from just like exploring how I can be the best I can from an athletic standpoint, right?
Hmm.
Like, being, the first and foremost, utilizing the business to create wealth and utilizing that wealth to get access to the top NBA level skills trainers, right? So that I can, see how far I can go. I mean, that's my story, right? But what I'm
No,
saying is, I don't
yeah,
tie anything to
yeah,
like, yeah, we have 500 million in assets under management, and it's only been 2.5 years as CEO. Like, these are cool things, but personally speaking, it doesn't move me because I just look at it very objectively. Like, the business is just meant to get me to a level of, I would say, like access, to the real thing
hmm,
that I want. And I think when I do accomplish the athletic thing to a certain level, because then my body will get, it's healthy to have another thing to contemplate on, to build and explore because as I mentioned, as natural monkeys, like that's how we're wired. Is we're not really wired for complacency. Like things get old for us. The
yeah,
receptors. That's why when if you sit in a room of perfume, cologne, or even like foul smell, eventually goes away because your receptors desensitize it. Then you're just like, oh, I'm used to it now, right? We just get used to things.
yeah. I think they call it hedonic adaptation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to those things. Yeah, I
Your
think it's
olfactory bulbs, your sensory receptors. That's a biological and physiological standpoint, from
mhm.
medicine. But I'm just saying, like, from an evolutionary standpoint, I feel like the people that you mentioned that are maybe like depressed or whatever is because, again, they just have too much ties to the company because the company doesn't define them, right? The LLC is an extension of you, right? Like that's why if you find that a person's personal life is in shambles, the business is usually on trajectory to be in shambles because the business is a reflection of you.
Right.
Like like people created the businesses and the entities. So if you are a mess, the business will be a mess, and that's my point.
Yeah. No, I think that's 100% right, right? We said that our mantra is that every business is a reflection of the leadership.
Yep.
And so like you can actually know and that everything is that, you know. This concept though actually like runs was like one of the things, in this vein that I actually was eye-opening for me actually coming back after living with the Yawanawa people. And I ended up like coming back home and I was sitting there and I was like, I was in a meeting with some of my attorneys and I said, hey, when you guys are on the phone like with people, it's going to be like important for you to ask them questions about maybe things they haven't done. Maybe they put together some asset protection stuff, but they never put together all of their estate planning. So I want you to like talk to them about the estate planning, but I want you to talk to them about it in a way to like actually generate a sale. Oh my God. What a meltdown, right? Asking somebody to sell, and you got to see all the belief systems comes out about selling. Oh, I hate sales. Salespeople are conniving people, and I can't do that, and da 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 da. Right? So what I did is I started to talk to them about, that, just to like let's look at it like a different frame about like what's happening, right? In the same vein about like how the business is a reflection of the leadership. Perhaps that concept actually goes much deeper. Perhaps all of the things that we have in business. Now you could say I could even make the argument in like a way about society, but let's just talk about business for this purpose. It makes it clear. Are actually all just reflections of what it is that we do as humans. that says like, well, what if marketing is really just about trying to talk to people about, are they aware of a particular problem that they're having? And imagine if you had friends and say, hey, are you guys aware that this is a thing that we're actually all suffering with
It's the
or having a
proper
problem with
framing.
or
Yeah, it's the
whatever?
proper
And
framing and
and like
processing of the concepts. Yeah. Because like when it comes to sales, right? My whole thing is if you created something that you basically that was equivalent to the cure to cancer, you're not selling anymore. Like, don't you think that it is now your right, your obligation, your responsibility of getting that out to the marketplace? Like, don't you,
but
you know?
you would run into the same problem at the individual level. So at the individual that you would say, I want you to go out there and get people to take this cancer drug. And we'd say, well, do you believe that the cancer drug is a great drug? Yeah. Just like if I went to my attorney and said, well, don't you believe it's important that these people have an estate plan? Yeah. Okay, great. So what's the problem? The problem is actually is a misunderstanding of what the activity is,
Mm,
right? And in that it's important for us as
yeah.
people to understand that when you're the marketing is a way in which that we're trying to solicit who else is suffering with this problem or who else is aware that this problem or something can be done about it. Sales is the way that you would talk to somebody as if they were your friend and you were trying to talk to them about like, hey, I know you're scared to change your diet. I know you're scared to take this drug, right? Or I know you, what are the things that are coming up for you about that? How can I help you walk through making a decision that actually is going to be really good for you, but you actually have internal roadblocks, belief systems, and other things that's keeping you from doing the thing that's actually good for you? And if you want to get really crazy with this concept, Philip, what you can actually do is look inside of yourself and you can start asking yourself the questions about what are all of the things that I'm aware of that I should be doing that would actually make my life better, but I find myself not doing them even though I have the time and opportunity to do them. Ah, I must be having the same types of roadblocks inside of myself, even though I'm consciously aware that doing that activity is the right and better thing.
Well, they say, you buy the way you sell. You buy the way you sell. Or you sell the way you buy. You sell the way you buy. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
so yeah, absolutely. It's true. So it's like if you have internal roadblocks about paying for high ticket products and services, 5K and above, 10K, 15, 20, 30, whatever it is, then it's probably hard for you to do the same thing and promote that, right? Because you yourself can't seem to justify, going through that activity. Or, if you're someone that's always like preferably payment plans, right? It's hard for you to sell upfront, and like in terms of the transaction because you believe in payment plans, just as an example. So yeah, I mean, it's all that's right, and that goes back to the point earlier discussed, which is the business is a reflection of you at the end of the day,
Yeah,
right?
the business is a
So
reflection of you, and your life is a reflection of you.
and
Like,
your behavior and your decisions
yeah,
as
those are
well. Yeah,
that's what I mean here by like we're gonna quantify you as not as like the you as like the soul, like the you as just like the collection of your behaviors and your
yeah,
habits and your belief systems and how that is like operating inside of the world. The every problem, this is why like the great teachers are saying like every problem that you're experiencing in your life has to actually do what's going on inside of you because you're not you're running into the problem that says, I'm aware of a better way for me to be able to operate. I'm actually unable to operate inside of that way, meaning my belief systems, habits, etc., right, aren't able to shift. And therefore, the actions that I carry out are now producing these suboptimal results in my life. And that all that ever really needed to change was what was going on inside of you. So you could actually
mhm,
even do the simplest thing, which is to just do the things that you already know are the things that you should be doing. That's not spending money on training programs. That's not needing access to more and higher level people. That's not needing to do the power working. That's not needing to read any books. What I'm suggesting and offering is saying perhaps the biggest mover in your life, not to say that those things won't move the dial. Of course they move the dial. We've all seen they move the dial. But perhaps the biggest mover in your life is actually being able to change what's happening internally so
yeah,
you can actually take the right
yeah.
actions.
Clean yourself up. clean yourself up first, right? And make sure you're like like how software updates go, right? Make sure you're updating yourself constantly before anything else, right?
I think that's it. If I was gonna say like what's the one pathway of like guaranteed success, that like if you live life from that level of understanding, is that you will never actually be able to fail. Like that it's impossible. It's
Right.
actually
Yeah.
impossible. You
Right.
if you're looking for a life that says that I always feel more successful today than I did yesterday, it's right there. And the tangible results will
That's right.
happen inside of
I
your
love it.
world.
I love it. It's so true
Mhm.
because it's a byproduct, right? So what you're saying is focus on the inputs. You just focus on getting better every single day. I mean, that's for basketball, that's the Mamba mentality by Kobe
Yeah,
Bryant. So,
yeah.
you just focus on getting 1% better and then you let the rest follows.
That's
And
it, right? And that it works the same way in basketball. And that's actually the analogy that I use with people when I'm talking about
hmm
this is saying like when you're looking to be able to correct like what's going on inside of you, like internally, that we talk about skills like true meditation skills that are actually proper meditation skills, which aren't taught in the mass markets and YouTubes and whatnot because they're not marketable. Like you have to go and actually study them from really advanced practitioners. I mean, it's a very
mm,
technical skill set actually to be able to
mm,
learn how to do it appropriately. It's very simple, but also at the same time, it's very, very precise.
yeah.
Um, and with that, what I said, I was explaining to people, I was like, listen, you were probably terrible. I bet you were terrible the first time you picked up a basketball, right, Philip? And you had to like run
Oh,
drills, you know?
yeah,
That,
I was
right?
I was a soccer player who hated basketball. My parents thought that it would be good for me because it would force me to jump so I'd be taller.
Mhm.
And then I just ended up fall. I know. I was like, what kind of fucking bullshit is that? I was like, dude, you're either tall or not, and genetically speaking, like I don't think that's gonna help me too much. But what I did end up doing was end up falling in love with the game and being Jayhawk Racing Kansas. It's kind of hard not to because we are a championship state in both football and basketball. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, at the beginning
that's
though,
awesome.
absolutely not, absolutely not. I mean, I was yeah, I was a multi-sport athlete, and I didn't really see myself doing anything with a basketball at all. and
Yeah,
uh, and now
right.
I want to
And
own an
I
NBA team and be a
there you
pro
go,
athlete.
right? This is it, right? And it like started because you like probably were like running drills and you were screwing it up a bunch and but like eventually you got better at it, right? And then you evolve like over time and you set bigger goals and then you have more intentionality that you're driving towards. The other parts of your life, like your business and other things, help you drive towards like that goal, that big goal that you have. And this is actually the same exact process from a logic point of view is what happens on the pathway of like inner peace, fulfillment, and enlightenment.
Yeah,
The great spiritual journeys are exactly the same as learning how to play basketball. It's exactly the same as your story of owning a basketball team. It's the exact same story of people doing great at business. It's just instead of turning outward to be able to solve the problem, you turn inward first.
yep.
And that's all that really comes out
You are
to.
probably the most right-brained attorney I have ever met and shook hands with. So I don't know if you want a trophy for that, but I've got one for you right here.
Dude, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay.
Give me
All right,
one.
right here.
Yeah. Booyah.
There you go. Awesome, man. Listen, Scott, it was a pleasure talking to you for an extended amount of time, which I very much appreciate. If people want to get to know you more, what is the best way to get access to you, and how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so the best things to do is actually just to, if it's about you want to contact me personally about something, then just email me at scott@royallegalsolutions.com. Everything that's about like on all the wealth side of stuff, of course, is on like the company, website. But I'm always happy to speak to people personally that are looking for, some help, guidance, making recommendations for what things that they might study next to help them on like their wealth journey or on their whatever they're trying to accomplish in life, everything from gardening to like romantic relationships or things that I've taken deep dives into. I'm just insatiably curious and happy to help others accomplish as long as they're, proactive about wanting to actually do really cool stuff with their life.
Awesome, man. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was a pleasure having you on. And I look forward to speaking to you again next time.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Phil.
much. Of course. Take care.
Thanks.